You know what crazy is? What is cancer? What is cancer is crazy because I understand cancer is an overgrowth of cells
Yeah.
in disorder. So it becomes this lump, this thing in your
Yeah.
body that is like it makes your body have some kind of dysfunction, and it could be fatal, right?
Yeah.
Lethal, fatal. So when I think about that, it's like cancer is life. It's a bunch of cells reproducing. It's
Yeah.
life,
Yeah, it is.
but it's killing you. It's so ironic. It's
Right.
like living super fast, a really fast life, like an organism that is
It's a
creating cells
mutation of what we call
really
it.
fast.
We
Yeah.
call it a mutation.
So when I think about that, of course, everything has to count. Diet, lifestyle, of course. Any intake, counts, of course, for your body. But I do think about how, in a different level, like in a mental level, it's also like it's like an over accelerated, growth of unorganized. Is that a word?
Mm-hmm.
Unorganized
Or
cells.
disorganized.
Disorganized.
Yeah.
That sounds better. Is an accelerated growth of disorganized cells.
It's funny.
So it's
I don't
like
know
it's
if
like a
that's right.
spark of life. It's a boom. All this thing is born and reproduces super fast, and you have to get rid of it.
Yeah, because it takes over everything.
That's so weird. Just cancer is just weird.
But I don't know, Jesse. I had this conversation with Jesse once, and he's a nurse, or he's studying to be a nurse, and he said you got to remember that cancer is also found in nature everywhere. But then I'm thinking, yeah, but how far back do you go? Is it because of the Industrial Revolution? Did we create cancer with the chemicals that we started putting into the earth, and so now we find cancer in the earth too, which we think is normal, but it's not. It's just from the chemicals. So, I mean, he was saying something. He was throwing it out there, like that made that made it all okay. But you've got to dig deeper and see, okay, so when did it start showing up in nature? When did you start finding cancer on the leaves?
You know what?
How far back does it
You
go?
know what? If we really want to think about the past and what's up and what happened before and just keep going back until, you find something else, then we should think about when did people separating good people and bad people according to their culture. When
Yeah,
did that
this is
happen?
why I want you to read
Why is it that all
Ishmael.
animals agree on their species and people don't?
Yeah, that's
Like-
the whole thing with
Like
the,
cats and dogs, let's just say by the way we culture state, cats and dogs don't get along. Let's just say that for fun. But all cats and all dogs have like an universal agreement. They all do certain things. They all eat certain things. They all like certain things, right?
Yeah.
But then when it comes to people, we don't agree with anyone. So we're not even like animals. We're like something completely else. So I'm thinking if we're gonna go back and trying to find a real reason why we have cancer, then instead of just thinking we start eating something bad, then I want to know the reason when did we start eating bad and why. I mean,
Right.
was it something before our
Yeah.
own existence that it was already like that way? Like people are this, and this is what they do. Meaning, what they do is disorder. They are the disoriented,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the organized, disoriented cell in a higher system. So maybe we are absolutely perfect,
Right.
which is very hard to understand unless you think about the big picture in a non-judgmental way. Of course,
Right.
don't prefer to see any kind of evil at all.
Yeah.
I want everybody to be obviously in peace and love, and everybody with a meal every day in a house, and everybody equally in that sense at that level, of course. But I also
So-
think about maybe if we are by nature precisely a product from nature to put things in chaos, in some kind of chaos, then we are actually doing perfectly what we are already.
That's kind of how Republicans go about their business. They may not
What do you
say
mean?
any of that, but that's how, in
They
general,
kinda, like, accept
they
the-
operate.
the
They
things are like
accept.
that?
It's like they do not. They don't get nervous about their behavior
Mm.
and it's in how it's affecting the earth, because they really truly feel, a lot of them at the end of the day, that God created the planet for them to maintain as they will, and that God said, this is even in the Bill Maher's.
I understand. Republicans in religion have.
Yes, and 9 times out of 10, Republicans are Christians.
I understand
they're
that,
connected
but-
to their religion. You know what I mean? Like, you see that most of the time. Republicans are Christian. There are some that aren't, but they either have a Catholic or Christian root. Almost every Republican, ask them what's their religion, they have a religion. They may not follow it specifically, but at the end of the day, they think they're going to heaven. Seriously. So Bill Maher had this thing where he brought on like an environmentalist, and he had two Republicans, and the Republicans were talking basically about the Bible, and then the environmentalist is trying to just give them facts, but it's not surprising, I guess, when you look at the choices that are being made. They're making the decisions. It's like this: if you believe that the Bible was true, Gerard, you would be a Republican most likely.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, but you know what?
It goes with the idea that God created a planet for you to master. That's what's said in the Bible. It said that man has been given domain over the animals, and not only that, but in the Bible there was the flood, right? So then after the flood, God says, "I will never again send something to destroy the earth." So there's this sense that we cannot destroy the earth. We're not going to destroy the earth with global warming because it's not possible that we would cause destruction to the planet. That's not God's
I understand
plan.
how.
So that's how far it goes. If you really, really believe in these things, you're going to choose this kind of politics. But it also is perfect because it allows you to succeed. It allows you to make tons of money. It also looks good. It just looks good.
I don't understand how it looks good if you.
To that mindset.
Yeah, no, I understand.
It's like you're being blessed by God.
Yeah, I do understand it's a mindset. You have to like think that way, feel that way. What I don't understand is how can you think there is anything to win at the end? That's what I don't understand.
You're winning your salvation because you were born evil. It is the absolute deep belief that you were born a sinner.
And then what? And then you have to fix that?
And then you have to be saved.
How?
Jesus.
Okay, but how does that make you a Republican?
Because, well, it's a very long story. Obviously you're not born a Republican, but as it goes on in your head, you get to the point where that's what makes sense.
Right. I understand that, yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happened to my family. It happened to me.
Yeah.
It happened. My mother has grown out of it. She talks now how she feels more independent. Or, she's actually, she was a Republican. She says she's moving more towards independent. But it's taken her almost 50 years to come to that conclusion.
Right.
So it's a really slow process of finding yourself in a different way and realizing you save yourself. See, it's just the two different schools of thought. That's what it is. If you think you need a salvation or like a salvation and a savior, then you're going to follow a different set of rules. Ultimately, you're going to feel safer and you're going to feel like you can do things.
Ugh.
You take more risks in different ways. It's strange. It makes total sense if you're coming from that Bible background. Oh, I wanted to touch on the thing you were talking about. You were talking about in the past, where was it that we had that divergence, with humans? And that book I always end up mentioning at some point or another, my Ishmael book, is really important. I think I'd love to reread it again, so we should just read it together. I think I should go buy it. But it talks about Homo habilis, which is one of the steps before Homo sapien, and how it's really the agricultural revolution that changed things for people, because people started to realize through their evolution that they could control their food supply beyond just their daily survival. It used to be that you went out and you hunted for the day, You only took what you needed for the day. But this is where it becomes important, because as the mind realizes that you can save more and store for the future, your evolution, like in your mind, you're creating a story, you're creating a timeline, you're creating a past, a present, and a future.
Right.
And the author did a lot of research with this, and he said, you find it in these records of how, these tribal peoples used to follow a trail of a deer. They would hunt the deer, and they learned that if there was a fresh dropping from the deer over here, then the deer was somewhere down there. It's creating a story in their head. So there's a past, a present, and a future. So they started doing that with their food supply, and they started seeing slowly over time that they could control their land more. That's where the Bible comes in. The man was given dominion over the land. This is just the split between those who are more about controlling and those who are more about living in the moment. And some tribes decided to continue to live in the moment, while this whole other group of people, predominantly white it seems, at the end of it all, they favored control. So they started farming and they started taking the land away from the animals. I mean, it was a whole control thing that started to happen. We started to gain dominion over the land. It was control. So we basically started going from place to place and forcing people.
People have a choice.
Yeah.
Of being present or to create time.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I bet you they do. I bet. I don't know if it's a choice per se.
What do you mean when you say there was a time that people split? Some people chose.
It's food. It's just food.
Uh-huh,
it's this very personal, intimate relationship with the earth. It's
Right,
giving
right.
back to you, right?
Right.
So there's something that happens with that, and probably the concept of time became more powerful around there too. I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just this realization that we could farm.
Right.
Truly farm.
Right, and trying to control our food supply.
And his point was the minute we started to do that, what happened was there was no cap to it.
Right.
You know, we didn't say, okay, now there's enough. No, it's like capitalism. It just keeps going and going and going because we don't know when enough is enough.
Right.
So it's one of those things where if you study animals, you see that they are territorial, but they do not wipe out a whole nother species. Foxes don't generally try to wipe out, specifically.
Right.
It happens naturally over time that one will dominate over another, but there's no, like, specific, we're going to go kill everything and take all your food. That was the natural law, he said. The natural law is that you eat what you need to eat, but you don't take more for later.
But you know what?
And I'm not saying it's bad to. I'm just saying we didn't know how to control it.